come to a green open place in a certain wood where no dwellings of men. I dismounted from my mare and took out the dagger. Then I parted my clothes where I thought the readiest way lay to my heart, and I prayed to all the gods that as soon as I was dead, I might find myself with my brother. After that, I shut my eyes and my teeth and prepared to drive the dagger into my heart. But before I had done so, this mare spoke with the voice of one of the daughters of men and said, "O my mistress, do not by any means destroy yourself. For if you live, you may yet have good fortune, but all the dead are dead alike." I didn't say it half so well as that, muttered the mare. "Hush, man, hush," said Bree, who was thoroughly enjoying the story. She's telling it in the grand Calormene manner, and no storyteller in a Tisrock's court could do it better. Pray go on, Tarkina. When I heard the language of men uttered by my mare, continued Arvis, I said to myself, the fear of death has disordered my reason and subjected me to delusions. And I became full of shame, for none of my lineage ought to fear death more than the biting of a gnat. Therefore I addressed myself a second time to the stabbing. But Hwin came near to me and put her head in between me and the dagger, and discoursed to me most excellent reasons, and rebuked me as a mother rebukes her daughter. And now my wonder was so great that I forgot about killing myself and about Ahoshta, and said, "O my mare, how have you learned to speak like one of the daughters of men?" And Hwin told me what it is known to all this company, that in Narnia there are beasts that talk, and how she herself was stolen from thence when she was a little foal. She told me also of the woods and waters of Narnia, and the castles and the great ships, till I said, in the name of Tash and Azoroth and Zardina, Lady of the Night, I have a great wish to be in that country of Narnia. "O my mistress," answered the mare, "if you were in Narnia, you would be happy. For in that land no maiden is forced to marry against her will." And when we had talked together for a great time, hope returned to me, and I rejoiced that I had not killed myself. Moreover, it was agreed between Hwin and me that we should steal ourselves away together, and we planned it in this fashion. We returned to my father's house, and I put on my grayest clothes and sang and danced before my father and pretended to be delighted with the marriage which he had prepared for me. Also, I said to him, "O my father, and O the delight of my eyes, give me your license and permission to go with one of my maidens alone for 3 days into the woods to do secret sacrifices to Zardina, Lady of the Night and of maidens, as is proper and customary for damsels when they must bid farewell to the service of Zardina and prepare themselves for marriage." And he answered, "O my daughter, and O the delight of my eyes, so it shall be." But when I came out from the presence of my father, I went immediately to the oldest of his slaves, his secretary, who had dandled me on his knees when I was a baby, and loved me more than the air and the light. And I swore him to be secret and begged him to write a certain letter for me. And he wept and implored me to change my resolution. But in the end he said, "To hear is to obey," and did all my will. And I sealed the letter and hid it in my bosom. "But what was in the letter?" asked Shasta. "Be quiet, youngster," said Bree. "You're spoiling the story. She'll tell us all about the letter in the right place. Go on, Tarkina." Then I called the maid who was to go with me to the woods and perform the rites of Zardina, and told her to wake me very early in the morning. And I became merry with her and gave her wine to drink. But I had mixed such things in her cup that I knew she must sleep for a night and a day. As soon as the household of my father had committed themselves to sleep, I arose and put on an armor of my brother's, which I always kept in my chamber in his memory. I put into my girdle all the money I had and certain choice jewels, and provided myself also with food, and saddled the mare with my own hands, and rode away in the second watch of the night. I directed my course not to the woods where my father supposed I would go, but north and east to Tashbaan. Now for 3 days and more, I knew that my father would not seek me, being deceived by the words I had said to him. And on the 4th day, we arrived at the city of Azimbalda. Now Azimbalda stands at the meeting of many roads, and from it the posts of the Tisrak, may he live forever, ride on swift horses to every part of the empire. And it is one of the rights and privileges of the greater Tarkans to send messages by them. I therefore went to the chief of the messengers in the house of imperial posts in Azimbalda, and said, O dispatcher of messages, here is a letter from my uncle, Ahoshta Tarkan, to Kidrash Tarkan, Lord of Kalavar. Take now these 5 crescents and cause it to be sent to him. And the chief of the messengers said, To hear is to obey. This letter was feigned to be written by Ahoshta, and this was the signification of the writing. Ahoshta Tarkan to Kidrash Tarkan, salutation and peace. In the name of Tash, the irresistible and inexorable, be it known to you that I made my journey toward your house to perform the contract of marriage between me and your daughter, Aravas vis Tarquina. It pleased fortune and the gods that I fell in with her in the forest when she had ended the rites and sacrifices of Zardina according to the custom of maidens. And when I learned who she was, being delighted with her beauty and discretion, I became inflamed with love, and it appeared to me that the sun would be dark to me if I did not marry her at once. Accordingly, I prepared the necessary sacrifices and married your daughter the same hour that I met her, and have returned with her to my own house. And we both pray and charge you to come hither as speedily as you may, that we may be delighted with your face and speech, and also that you may bring with you the dowry of my wife, which, by reason of my great charges and expenses, I require without delay. And because thou and I are brothers, I assure myself that you will not be angered by the haste of my marriage, which is wholly occasioned by the great love I bear your daughter. And I commit you to the care of all the gods. As soon as I had done this, I rode on in all haste from Azimbalda, fearing no pursuit and expecting that my father, having received such a letter, would send messages to Ahoshta or go to him himself, and that before the matter was discovered, I should be beyond Tashbaan. And that is the pith of my story, until this very night, when I was chased by lions and met you at the swimming of the salt water. And what happened to the girl, the one you drugged, asked Shasta. Doubtless she was beaten for sleeping late, said Aravis coolly. But she was a tool and spy of my stepmother's. I am very glad they should beat her. I say that was hardly fair, said Shasta. I did not do any of these things for the sake of pleasing you, said Aravis. And there's another thing I don't understand about that story, said Shasta. You're not grown up. I don't believe you're any older than I am. I don't believe you are as old. How could you be getting married at your age? Aravis said nothing. But Bree said at once, "Shasta, don't display your ignorance. They are always married at that age in the great Tarkan families." Shasta turned very red, though it was hardly light enough for the others to see this, and felt snubbed. Aravis asked Bree for his story. Bree told it, and Shasta thought that he put in a great deal more than he needed about the falls and the bad riding. Bree obviously thought it very funny, but Aravis did not laugh. When Bree had finished, they all went to sleep. Next day, all four of them, 2 horses and 2 humans, continued their journey together. Shasta thought it had been much pleasanter when he and Bree were on their own. For now, it was Bree and Aravis who did nearly all the talking. Bree had lived a long time in Calormen and had always been among Tarkan's and Tarkan's horses. And so, of course, he knew a great many of the same people and places that Aravis knew. She would always be saying things like, "But if you were at the fight of Zulindre, you would have seen my cousin Alamash," said, and Bree would answer, "Oh yes, Alamash. He was only captain of the chariots, you know. I don't quite hold with chariots, or the kind of horses who draw chariots. That's not real cavalry. But he is a worthy nobleman. He filled my nose bag with sugar after the taking of Tebeth." Or else Bree would say, "I was down at the lake of Mesriel that summer," and Aravis would say, "Oh, Mesriel, I had a friend there, Lazareline Tarkina. What a delightful place it is. Those gardens and the valley of the 1,000 perfumes." Bree was not in the least trying to leave Shasta out of things, though Shasta sometimes nearly thought he was. People who know a lot of the same things can hardly help talking about them. And if you're there, you can hardly help feeling that you're out of it. When the mare was rather shy before a great war horse like Bree, and said very little, and Aravis never spoke to Shasta at all, if she could help it. Soon, however, they had more important things to think of. They were getting near Tashbaan. There were more and larger villages and more people on the roads. They now did nearly all their traveling by night and hid as best they could during the day. And at every halt, they argued and argued about what they were to do when they reached Tashbaan. Everyone had been putting off this difficulty, but now it could be put off no longer. During these discussions, Aravis became a very little, less unfriendly to Shasta. One usually gets on better with people when one is making plans